Welcome back to my week 32 of 2026 week in review. So this week you've probably clicked on the title because I'm going to be reviewing my experience with IGF-1 LR3. First, we're going to get into the check-ins and my data for this week, and then I'll give you an overview of my experience with it at the end of the video. So I hope you enjoy. Stick around to the end. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave any comments about the information I'm providing or anything you feel like I may have missed out. Leave that all down below. If you want any coaching or anything like that, all my links are down below in the description too. First things first then, let's have a look at the physique. Last week I didn't do a set of check-in pictures for Nath. He was off on holiday, so we have like 2 weeks worth of catch up to kind of see what happened. The deload did me a world of good. I'm really hairy. I'm going to apologize for that. It's a byproduct of me. I'm a particularly hairy individual, and with him being away, I was like, well, I don't need to shave for anyone. Then kind of just got really, really busy. So what I'm seeing here compared to the last lot is that the fatigue has absolutely pulled off of the physique. I didn't realize how battered I was. Lines are starting to show through the midsection again. Quads are still slightly feathered, which is fantastic. But we all know, if you've been following this series, that is not the problem area. From the front is always fairly lean for me. So I'm sitting here. This was 223 pounds. So about 101, 102, maybe 102.5 kilos, somewhere in that realm. So for me, being at this weight, at this condition is pretty good. Like, I've never been this lean at that weight before, so I'm fairly happy, but this is as far as I want to push it in the off season. So from the side, glutes are still slightly showing, which is great. It's hard to see the detail because the excess hair, but overall I'm not displeased. The upper chest is starting to fill in ever so slightly. From the rear, the glutes are starting to soften a little bit more, and the hamstrings are. Obviously, the hair there, you can see a picture of like a flickering of lines, but there's definitely more muscle added. And overall, I'm not unhappy with this. So waist is still nice and tight. The trunks aren't digging in too much. There's a little bit there, but it's to be expected with 3 to 4 weeks to go left of this off season. So overall, happy. Just ready. Personally, I just feel ready to crack on and get this body fat off and get back on stage, which I know now won't be till 2027, but we can start chipping away in the next 8 weeks or so. I'm just ready. I'm just in that mindset now. Not that I'm bored of growing. It's just I feel like I've hit a bit of a wall. So let's have a quick look through. Other side shot. Glute never comes through as much this side, but the shape isn't too bad. The arms have definitely come up, so we can see even the arm there is not looking too bad. You know, midsection staying well. Lats are starting to flare out a little bit more. Arms are still a weak point, but they're not as weak as they were before. I'm working with a physio. He doesn't really have a job title, but just to really open up that scapula and get that round. So this is something. I know I have more back than this, so I just need to learn how to display it without losing that top line. So you can see here that I'm a lot wider than I have been before. So it's just going to be a case of keeping that width and getting these to come out. And this is my clavicular width. It's nothing to do with excess muscle being added. From the side, I tried something different with my feet, just made my quads look small. So what I'm here is I'm actually on the tippy toe. It gave me less hamstring, less quad, and my glute turned off. So really terrible idea. So just overall, just need to not do that, basically. I've probably played with it in the past. And yeah. So from the back, again, it's my weakest shot when it comes to conditioning. So this is always where it comes in last. Probably would like to raise that arm up a little bit so that that peak of the bicep comes over the front delt. But anyway, let's stop looking at the physique. Let's have a look at the timeline and see what's happened. And then we'll get into the juicy stuff. I want to interrupt this video just to talk to you about supplements. As a competitive bodybuilder, My performance, my recovery, and my health are all super important in my life. This is why I have been using Trained by JP supplements for the last 5 years now. They cover everything from your pre, intra, and post-workout nutrition. They also offer health and joint supplementation. They also offer a nice stack and save option, which means that you don't have to think about which individual products you need. They're all there in a bundle package for you with a discount. If you click the link in the description below and use the code GPS10 at checkout, you'll get a 10% off your order. Now back to the video. From the last week, I'm up 0.9 pounds. So this is a great rate of gain for this time. You know, we've been on cycle for quite some time now. You know, I've had a few drop-offs in body weight. Food's been escalated. It's held nicely. We're growing at a nice trickle. The deload was very much needed. I had an off plan on the Saturday, as I think I mentioned in the last video. If not, then I had a big fat off T-bone steak. So no real need for changes when it comes to that. First week back in the gym, it's going to be a little bit of inflammation there from just the training stimulus coming back in. HIIT cardio has been added back in. This was the last week that I ran IGF-1 LR3, and I also ran out of Clo as well, which I'm just going to take a little bit of a break from. I am saving for a new car, so that added expense just isn't really needed there. So you can see this week it's reduced by quite a little bit. So also swapped from L-carnitine to twin amino. Not really noticed much difference other than the fact that that's about 60-70 quid, and that's 45 quid. So it's probably something I'm going to keep in. The choline is meant to do something for your brain. Have I noticed anything? Not really, but I tend to run my brain at 1,000 RPM anyway, so I usually get mentally tired by the end of each day. So maybe over time, maybe it needs time to kind of come into its own. Maybe that's what it is. I'm not 100% sure on that front. So over near the tracker, then we have the first session. So what my HIIT sessions consisted of, and what I've changed it back to, was 40 seconds attacking and kind of 20 seconds rest for 10 minutes straight. And what I was just finding, I was just absolutely battered after it. So I swapped it back to 30 and 30. So 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. And it's been a lot easier to recover from and just a lot better. I'm still getting my heart rate into the ranges, but that's why the calories have dropped off a little bit. 20 calories isn't going to do anything really. What is that? That's a third of an apple, really, if you think about it. So it's nothing crazy. It's just exposing my heart to those ranges. I had a day here where the steps weren't hit, but overall I averaged 11,900, and I was damn close. I've just had a really busy week at work. I work in finance, so we've had the audit going on, so that's why stress has been a little bit higher. So I'm using the Bevel Health app. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, to kind of calculate my stress of the day, and it gives me a stress score. So that's what I'm basing that off, and that is also why my sleep scores have changed dramatically. Look, if you look back here, it's in the 90s. Now it's gone back to it's down in the 70s, which is probably more of a reflection of how I'm actually sleeping. So I'm happy with that. HRV is maintained from the rest week, which is quite good. When I had that week's rest, I'd have expected it to go up, but actually it's maintained. So very happy with that. And rest and heart rate's increased slightly, but that's to be expected with the training element. Blood pressure is in an okay spot. It's starting to elevate a little bit, but again, it's also to be expected this close to the end of a push-up. So I'm not so worried about that, but I'm ready to start bringing that back down. It's still in a fairly healthy range. 125 over 71 isn't the worst. There's, we're just slightly hypertensive. The kind of high end of optimal is 120. So diastolic still in a very good spot, but systolic is on the up, which isn't a good sign, but it's also to be expected. So definitely tell my body's under a little bit of stress. It might also be down to the heat. We're still in a very hot temperature here in the UK at the moment, so that's probably that. The only other thing that's changed training wise is, I probably haven't mentioned this before, but we had dips, bodyweight dips in there. Now I'm 6'2", and switching over to a new gym, the dip machine there is, or the dip station is so low, and I've tried out the dip machines and I just don't get on with them. So we've got a gym shop flat press. I know it says Gym Lecker, but we have a gym shop flat press there with neutral handles. So we decided to switch that out so I can actually start to progress on that again. So going to give that a run this week and just see how we get on. So other than that, pretty much rinse and repeat. Same food for next week. And now let's talk about IGF-1 LR3. So let's now talk about the juicy stuff. IGF-1 LR3, my experience. But first, let's talk about what it actually is and what it does. So IGF-1 stands for insulin growth factor 1, and it's downstream from growth hormone. So what happens is when you train, growth hormone goes to the liver and produces in there IGF-1 to basically repair the muscle tissue quickly. Now, the insulin-like growth factor only lasts for a couple of seconds. So why would I be using IGF-1 LR3? The LR3 means that it's a slow-acting IGF-1. What this does is, instead of the couple of seconds, I think it might even, in some cases, go up to a minute. But this lasts 20 to 30 hours. So I've been using it pre-workout and post-workout. So I've been using 50 micrograms pre and 50 micrograms post directly into the sites that I want to grow, specifically my arms. So say, for example, it's, I don't know, a push day. I would do 25 in the inner head each side, and then post-workout I'd do 25 in the outer head. Now, it's only a small shot, so it might seem a little bit gross to some people, but it's such a small amount that it wasn't really an issue. But was it worth it? And my review is probably for about 4 weeks, yes. Anything more than that, and it just kind of diminished. My arms have grown quite a bit, but there's also many other factors in play, such as my training's got better, my food's increased, drugs are at an all-time high, growth hormone has stayed in at 4IU, but I don't think, if you've got the excess funds and money isn't an issue, great, give it a go. 4-6 weeks, great. Have a play, see if it gets a response for you. For me personally, it wasn't worth the money that I put into it. There wasn't anything significant. So I've been measuring my arms. I've been doing them in centimeters, just so that I don't get the whole, whoa, I don't have 20-inch arms, bro. So they roughly averaged, they may have grown like half a centimeter, but it's not been anything crazy. You know, they sit around 40 to 41 centimeters and have done for the whole period that I use them. So it's not like a game changer. The other thing to think about is with IGF-1 is it works quite similarly to insulin, so it can drop your blood glucose quite a bit. So that's also something to be wary of when using it. Personally, would I use it again? Probably not. That's not something, I don't think the juice was worth the squeeze. Other people have had insane results, but maybe their diets and things haven't been as dialed in as mine have. Maybe that's the case. Maybe they're bringing up body parts that have, you know, maybe diminished over time, and they just want to bring them back up, which I think that would have its place. You know, putting some in there excuse me, putting some in there to kind of recover lost muscle tissue is probably more likely where I'd use it. But to actually grow new tissue, I didn't see much from it. I might run it again at some point just to do kind of like a double take, because sometimes the first time isn't the best. But I personally wouldn't recommend it, just because I don't think it's there. Now, other things like growth hormone, fantastic. You know, I've seen great results with that. Anabolics, the basics really have been fantastic with me, and usually I have quite a good response, even though I have to run them slightly higher dosages, just because my body metabolizes them quite well. But with everything that I've used, I've seen something, and this, even the pumps weren't that great. When I've used fast-acting insulin in the past, I've seen quite good results, whereas the IGF-1 wasn't the same. So personally, for me, I would much prefer use a fast-acting insulin pre-workout than I would IGF-1 LR3 again, and that's just my personal opinion. So let me know if you've had any experience with IGF-1 LR3, what you think of it, how you found it. Did you have a similar experience to me? Anything, leave them down in the comments below, and I'll be interested to hear. So thank you very much for watching. I hope this was great, and I will speak to you all next week.